The galaxy was vast, filled with countless species, each with their own cultures, wars, and strange obsessions. Yet nothing spread faster across alien markets than whispers about a new delicacy, a forbidden treasure that shook every hall of power. They called it human nectar. No one knew how it was discovered or who first dared to taste it, but once the rumor began, even the most powerful empires turned restless. They said it was not food, not drink, but something deeper, something from within the humans themselves. Rare and impossible to copy. It began on the barren edge of the Ornak cluster, where scavenger fleets roamed broken planets. A small alien raider group captured a damaged Earthship that had strayed into forbidden space. Most raiders expected weapons, or perhaps technology worth stealing. Instead, they found humans weak, injured, barely able to stand. The raiders planned to sell them as slaves, but one of the alien medics discovered something unusual during the scans. The human body secreted a substance, only in moments of great stress and pain, that resonated with alien biology. One drop sent the medic into visions, strength, and euphoria he had never known. That single discovery spread like wildfire. Soon, the talk of human nectar moved from pirate markets to the halls of the Galactic Council. Some species laughed at the idea, dismissing it as myth. Others grew silent, hiding the hunger in their eyes. And a few began preparing fleets, for they knew that if the rumors were true, controlling the source meant controlling the most powerful commodity in the galaxy. Earth never saw the first invasion coming. Humans were still new to space travel, sending small ships to mine asteroids and explore nearby stars. Their fleets were small, their weapons outdated compared to galactic powers. The attack fell upon the colonies near Proxima, where thousands of settlers lived in fragile domes. Alien warships descended, not demanding surrender, but hunting for humans like predators smelling blood. The humans resisted with everything they had. Old railguns, missile batteries, even mining lasers were turned into weapons. Civilians grabbed rifles, fought in the streets, and turned burning habitats into traps for their enemies. For every human captured, 10 aliens fell in brutal close combat, but the attackers were relentless. They wanted bodies, not victory. They wanted the nectar. Captain Elias Ward stood on the broken wall of the main colony hub, his rifle burning hot, his armor cracked. Around him, men and women fought side by side, bloodied but unyielding. He could see the alien troops dragging away the captured, shoving them into pods bound for their ships. His jaw clenched, his stomach twisted with rage, and a thought filled his mind. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to harvest. The realization spread through the defenders like fire. Humanity was not facing a war of territory or politics. They were being hunted for what they carried inside their veins. Hours later, the colony lay in ruins. Fires burned through collapsed domes, the air thick with smoke and screams. Elias pulled a wounded soldier from the rubble, his face streaked with ash and blood. "We're not fighting for land anymore," he whispered. "We're fighting for our right to exist." Above, alien warships pulled away, filled with captured humans. The invaders did not bother to finish the fight. They had taken what they came for. On the other side of the galaxy, in glittering palaces of alien nobility, the first drops of human nectar were consumed in secret feasts. The effect was immediate. The nobles gasped, their skin glowing, their minds sharpened, their bodies stronger than ever before. They declared it divine, the most perfect taste in the universe. Armies marched at their command to bring back more, but something stirred in the darkness of human space. What the aliens could not understand was simple humans were not cattle. They were not prey. For every life stolen, for every drop of nectar taken, fury grew in the hearts of those who survived. And fury was something no empire had ever learned to fear until they met humanity. Elias Ward looked at the stars, his hand tightening on his rifle. The war had begun, and it would not end until the galaxy learned the truth. Humans were not food. Humans were the storm that came after hunger. And when the storm broke, no empire would be left standing. The Proxima colony was gone, smoldering. Ruins stretched across the blackened soil, and the surviving humans who had not been taken stood among the wreckage, their faces hard and eyes burning with grief. For Captain Elias Ward, the screams of the captured still echoed in his ears. He knew where they were being taken. He knew what the aliens wanted. The thought of humans being drained, experimented on, and consumed as a delicacy filled him with a cold fury. But Elias also knew one thing the aliens did not. Humanity had always been underestimated. Time and again on Earth, stronger predators had tried to feast on the weak. Time and again, humans had risen, adapted, and fought back. The nectar the aliens craved was born from suffering, and no creature in the galaxy knew how to survive suffering better than humanity. Within hours, makeshift command centers were formed across what remained of the colony. Civilians, engineers, and soldiers gathered in the shattered hangars, speaking in urgent voices, patching weapons, and building crude defenses. Old mining drones were stripped down and armed with explosives. Damaged cargo haulers were outfitted with railgun turrets. Every hand worked, every eye burned with determination. "We don't have the fleet to fight them head-on," Elias told the survivors, his voice steady. "But we don't need one. We need to remind them what it means to hunt humans. We'll make them choke on the taste they're so desperate for." The survivors answered with grim nods. Humanity had no choice but to turn their rage into weapons. Far across the stars, alien markets were exploding with demand. Human nectar sold for more than starships, more than planets. Nobles traded fleets for a single vial. Wars between alien empires began to break out, not over territory, but over the right to control shipments of captured humans. What had started as raids grew into an industry, a dark shadow spreading across the galaxy. But the aliens had miscalculated. They believed humans were fragile. They believed humans would break. Instead, humanity became more dangerous with every wound. The nectar they craved was a curse, for to produce it, humans had to be pushed into despair. And despair only made them fight harder. Elias led his people in the first counterattack. Under the cover of darkness, a team of survivors launched a stolen alien shuttle from the wreckage, its engines flickering but still functional. They followed the trail of the raider fleet, hiding in the debris fields, waiting for their chance. Hours later, they found one of the alien harvest ships drifting near a gas giant, its cargo bays heavy with stolen prisoners. The humans struck with a fury no alien had expected. Explosives ripped through the harvest pods, freeing captives before they could be drained. Men and women, half-starved and trembling, staggered from their cells with fire in their eyes. Armed with alien rifles and raw desperation, they joined the fight, turning the very tools of their tormentors against them. By the time the battle was over, the harvest ship was in flames. The few aliens left alive were thrown out into the void. Humanity had taken its first step from prey to predator. Word spread quickly. The galaxy had expected easy prey. Instead, whispers of human resistance began to spread. Stories of survivors who turned broken machines into weapons. Tales of humans who fought to their last breath, never begging, never surrendering. For the first time, fear touched the hearts of the alien lords who had once laughed at the idea of human defiance. Back on the ruined colony, Elias watched the stars, knowing this was only the beginning. He spoke to his people, his voice carrying through the battered hangar. "They want to taste what we are," he said. Let them taste our fury. Let them choke on it until they regret ever touching humanity. We will not be food. We will be the fire that burns their empires to ash." His words lit a fire in every heart. Humanity was scattered, broken, and hunted. But for the first time in the galaxy's long history, Something new was rising from the ruins, a rage that no empire could contain. Above them, the stars glittered, cold and endless, but Elias knew the truth. The war for survival had begun. The galaxy thought it had found a delicacy. Instead, it had awoken a nightmare. The fires of Proxima still burned when the first whispers of rebellion spread to other colonies. Messages were carried through broken satellites, old smuggler routes, and desperate couriers willing to die to deliver a single warning. The aliens don't want our worlds. They want us. At first, many doubted. Humanity had always feared invaders, but the thought of being hunted for what their bodies produced sounded like madness. Yet then came the testimonies. Survivors described the harvest ships, the pods where humans were drained of their essence, the alien feasts where nobles drank the nectar as if it were divine wine. Those who escaped bore scars, thin silver lines on their skin where the extraction needles had entered. They carried the proof of what humanity had become to the galaxy. Prey turned into a prize, but humans had never been good prey. Across the colonies, something began to change. Civilians became soldiers. Miners turned their drills into weapons. Farmers packed explosives into cargo haulers. Engineers rewired old reactors into bombs. Every world that had once felt weak and forgotten now stood on edge, waiting for the next raid, determined that if they were to be taken, their captors would pay dearly. Elias Ward became a name carried across the stars. Stories spread of the captain who led survivors to hijack a harvest ship, freeing the captured, and sending the raiders burning into the void. He was not just a soldier anymore. He was a symbol. When other colonies heard his name, they whispered, "If he can fight, so can we." Meanwhile, alien society twisted into chaos. Human nectar was no longer just a delicacy, it was currency. Fleets of mercenaries sold themselves to the highest bidder, fighting wars not for planets, but for shipments of humans. Noble houses crumbled as rivals poisoned one another with counterfeit nectar, desperate to gain an edge. And through it all, the demand grew louder, more humans, more nectar. But with each raid, with each harvest attempt, the aliens encountered something unexpected: resistance that grew fiercer, deadlier, and smarter. What the aliens failed to understand was simple. Humans did not break the way other species did. Where fear destroyed others, fear sharpened humans. Where loss weakened empires, loss hardened humanity into steel. On the mining colony of Hesperus, a raider fleet arrived expecting an easy harvest. Instead, they found the skies filled with jury-rigged drones packed with explosives, guided by teenagers who had grown up playing flight simulators. The aliens laughed at the primitive attack, until the drones plunged directly into their fuel bays, igniting the ships in fire. Only a handful escaped, limping back to their masters with a single message: "Do not underestimate humans." In the Galactic Council, arguments erupted. Some species demanded the harvesting be outlawed, fearing what would happen if humanity was pushed too far. Others scoffed, saying the nectar was too valuable to ignore. And a few, those who had tasted it, argued with desperation in their eyes. To them, it was already too late. The hunger was in their blood. Elias and his people struck again and again. Each raid on a harvest ship freed more captives, and each freed captive carried tales of the horrors they had endured. But they also carried something else: rage. That rage became fuel. It built fleets out of scrap. It turned broken colonies into fortresses. It united a scattered species into something the galaxy had never seen before. A force driven not by conquest or greed, but by survival and vengeance. Late one night, in the hidden hangar of a ruined station, Elias stood before a group of survivors. Their weapons were mismatched, their armor dented, their eyes weary, yet they stood tall. He looked at them and spoke in the voice of a man who had lost everything but hope. "They think they can taste us," he said. "They think they can drink us dry. Let them try. Every time they come for us, they will leave with less. less ships, less soldiers, less hope. And one day, they will realize the truth that they didn't find a delicacy. They found their executioners. The hangar erupted in fierce, determined cheers. Far away, in the palace of an alien emperor who had once thought himself untouchable, a vial of nectar lay shattered on the floor. The emperor's hands shook, his body trembling with withdrawal. Around him, servants whispered of humans fighting back, humans destroying fleets, humans turning from prey to predator. For the first time, fear entered his heart, not fear of losing nectar, but fear of what humans might become when their fury was unleashed upon the stars. The galaxy had craved human nectar. But soon, it would learn that the true flavor of humanity was something far more dangerous. Vengeance. The galaxy was changing. What had begun as a shadowy trade in human nectar had become the spark of chaos that reached every star system. Fleets once meant to defend borders now turned inward, guarding shipments of captured humans. Entire empires risked civil war, as nobles demanded more nectar and soldiers deserted to sell it in secret. The hunger spread like fire through dry forests, consuming order, reason, and restraint. But humanity was also changing. For the first time in history, their scattered colonies, once isolated and vulnerable, began to link together. Old rivalries were buried. Broken communication satellites were repaired. Cargo haulers became carriers of messages, weapons, and hope. Across the void, one name carried weight like a weapon: Elias Ward. Elias had not asked to lead, yet leadership clung to him. Every time he looked into the eyes of the survivors, he saw what they needed: a voice to turn grief into fire, fear into steel. Slowly, with patience carved from loss, he became that voice. His words carried through stolen broadcasts, whispered into resistance channels, and scrawled into the walls of ruined colonies. We are not prey. We are the storm. The storm was gathering. On the hidden colony of Vera 7, engineers and survivors pooled together scraps from dozens of battles. Hulls torn from raider ships were welded onto human cargo freighters. Weapons salvaged from wrecks were mounted onto old mining barges. Each ship looked mismatched, ugly, and fragile. But when they flew together, they were something the galaxy had never seen before: a fleet born not from wealth or empire, but from rage and survival. Elias stood at the center of the makeshift command bridge, staring at the star map flickering above the console. Dozens of red markers showed alien harvest fleets moving like vultures. Green markers, human strongholds, were few and fragile, their light flickering. Yet Elias saw something the aliens did not. He saw connection. They think we are scattered, Elias said, his voice echoing through the comms. They think we are weak. But what they do not see is that we are already united. Every colony that bleeds becomes part of this fight. Every life taken sharpens our blade. And soon we will strike back, not as fragments, but as one. Cheers erupted from the comms, voices from across systems, men and women who had never met, but now shared the same fire. Humanity was becoming something new, something dangerous. Meanwhile, alien empires strained under their obsession. At the palace of the Rilk dynasty, nobles gathered in a secret chamber, their eyes glowing faintly from the nectar they had consumed. Their voices trembled with desperation. We must secure more humans, one said, clutching at the table with trembling claws. Our fleets are stretched thin, another replied, her skin pale from overuse. Every raid grows harder. They are fighting back. Then fight harder, roared a third. Do you not understand? Without the nectar, we are nothing. With it, we are gods. But already, the crack showed. Soldiers muttered of endless wars fought for the greed of their masters. Commanders watched fleets vanish in battles they should have won. Whispers of human victories spread, poisoning morale. The more the nobles consumed, the more desperate they became, blind to the fact that their addiction was unraveling the very empires they ruled. On the edge of a dying star system, Elias led his fleet into their boldest strike yet. They targeted not a raider, but a supply convoy carrying captured humans to a noble's private palace. The battle was brutal. Human ships, cobbled together with scrap and held by sheer will, threw themselves into the fight. Aliens scoffed at the fragile vessels until they realized humans were using tactics no machine could predict. Cargo haulers rammed into enemy cruisers, detonating reactors in suicidal blasts. Fighters feigned retreat, only to circle back with savage precision. Every ship lost carried a human who refused to die quietly. When the battle ended, the convoy was ash. Hundreds of captured humans were freed, their broken bodies carried onto makeshift med bays where they wept, not from weakness, but from rage. That would soon fuel the fight again. Elias walked among them, his armor scarred, his face streaked with soot. One survivor, a young woman with hollow eyes, clutched his arm. "Why are they doing this to us?" she whispered. He looked into her eyes, knowing the truth was cruel but necessary. "Because they think we are food," he said. "But we will show them we are poison." The survivors whispered those words to one another, and soon it spread. Like fire through every ship, every colony, every corner of human space. Humanity was poisoned out in the alien courts. Panic spread. More fleets were lost. More nobles fell to assassins fueled by desperation. A few voices whispered that the nectar was too dangerous to chase, that humanity should be left alone. But those voices were silenced by the roar of hunger from those too far gone. The galaxy had thought humanity would collapse under the weight of being hunted. Instead, they had forged something the stars had not seen in millennia, unity born of fury. And Elias Ward knew this was only the beginning. The war was no longer about survival alone. It was about teaching the galaxy the most dangerous lesson of all. What happens when humans stop running and turn to face the predator? The storm was no longer gathering. The storm was here. The human fleet was no longer hiding. Once a scattered resistance, it now burned openly through alien space, leaving wreckage in its wake. Where harvest convoys traveled, they were hunted. Where raider fleets gathered, they were ambushed. Where nobles gathered their secret stores of human nectar, they found only ash and silence. Humanity had learned not just to fight, but to strike with precision and fury. Elias Ward stood at the bridge of the Resolute, a warship patched together from human and alien wreckage. The stars shimmered beyond the cracked viewport as alarms blinked softly around him. His fleet was small compared to the armadas of alien empires, but what they lacked in size they made up for in cunning. His eyes scanned the star map as new data flashed. A target had been marked, an alien refinery where nectar was stored, processed, and sold to the highest bidder. "This is not just about freeing our people," Elias told his commanders through the comms. "It's about breaking their hunger. They believe they can feast on us forever. We will show them their hunger will only bring them pain." The fleet roared in agreement. The attack on the refinery was a masterpiece of human defiance. Old freighters appeared first, broadcasting distress calls, pretending to be crippled civilian vessels. When alien patrols moved to intercept, hidden weapons lit up, shredding them in seconds. Then the rest of the human fleet emerged from the void, engines blazing, weapons cutting through the refinery's defenses. Aliens fought back with advanced cannons and fleets of drones, but humans fought like creatures who had nothing left to lose. They rammed ships into gun platforms, detonated reactors inside docking bays, and stormed boarding corridors with knives when ammunition ran out. By the time the battle ended, the refinery was a fireball stretching across the void. Billions of credits of nectar were gone in minutes. The nobles screamed across their channels, their hunger gnawing at them. Entire empires shook as riots broke out among the addicted. Fleets turned against their masters. Assassinations spread like plague. And in the silence of their desperation, one truth grew clearer. Humanity could not be controlled, but with every victory came cost. Human ships burned. Men and women fell in droves, their bodies lost to the void. Elias stood in the aftermath, watching as names of the dead scrolled across the console. He carried their weight, their fury, and their sacrifice. For each loss, his resolve hardened. Across the galaxy, the myth of human nectar transformed. To many, it was still a treasure, something to crave and kill for. But among soldiers who had fought against humans, whispers began to change. They spoke of humans as fire, as poison, as a storm that grew deadlier the more it was struck. The nectar, once seen as divine, now became a curse. To consume it was to call down the wrath of those who would never stop hunting you. Elias' fleet pressed deeper into enemy space. Each raid carried not just destruction, but a message carved into alien comes for all to hear. We are not food. We are your reckoning. The alien empires faltered. The Rilk dynasty split as half its nobles turned on one another in bloody purges. The Zarn hegemony, once feared for its massive fleets, found itself unable to keep soldiers loyal, as more and more deserted rather than face humans again. And through the chaos, humans struck again and again, never giving the galaxy a moment to breathe. Yet Elias knew the fight was not won. The aliens were vast, countless, with resources that dwarfed humanity. Their hunger was still strong, and desperation could breed new horrors. Already, rumors spread of experiments to artificially create nectar from harvested human bodies, even in death. The thought chilled him. One night, as he sat alone in the dim bridge, Elias stared at the stars. He thought of Earth, of the blue oceans and green fields that now felt like memories from another life. He thought of the captured, still lost in alien prisons, their suffering feeding the hunger of an entire galaxy. And he thought of the storm humanity had become. A soft voice broke his thoughts. It was Lieutenant Mara, one of the first survivors from Proxima, now his most trusted officer. Her armor was scarred, her eyes hard, yet her presence carried strength. They fear us now, she said quietly. They don't fear us enough, Elias replied. Mara's lips curved into the faintest smile. Then let's make them. Outside. The human fleet prepared for its next strike. Engines rumbled. Weapons charged. Survivors whispered oaths to one another, promising not to rest until the galaxy understood the price of its hunger. The aliens had wanted a flavor that shook their empires. Instead, they had tasted humanity's wrath, and the aftertaste was war. Asterisk. The galaxy was burning. Not with the flames of conquest, but with the rot of hunger. Empires that had once stood for thousands of years now tore themselves apart, blinded by their desire for human nectar. Civil wars erupted in noble houses. Fleets abandoned their posts to chase rumors of shipments. Leaders who tried to forbid the trade were assassinated by their own kin. What began as whispers in shadow markets had grown into a sickness that infected every corner of alien society. And at the heart of it all stood humanity, the human fleet. Once fragile and scattered, now moved with the weight of legend. Each battle they fought left stories carried across the stars. Aliens spoke of ships that came from nowhere, striking like lightning and vanishing into the void. They spoke of humans who would rather burn alive than surrender. They spoke of Elias Ward, the man who turned prey into predators. His name was no longer just a warning. It was a curse whispered in the halls of alien power. But Elias was tired. His eyes carried the weight of every soldier lost, every colony burned, every human dragged into the shadows and never returned. He had no illusions of glory. He knew what they were fighting was not just battles, but the survival of their species. And now, a chance had come to end it. Scouts brought word of a gathering. The nobles of three great empires, the Rilk dynasty, the Zarn hegemony, and the Talar dominion, planned to meet in secret. They would pool their fleets, pool their prisoners, and seize control of the nectar trade forever. If they succeeded, Humanity would be hunted until extinction. But if the humans struck now, if they shattered this alliance before it began, the galaxy would fall into chaos too deep to recover. Elias gathered his commanders on the Resolute. The hollow table glowed between them, showing the coordinates of the meeting. An old moon, hollowed into a fortress, rimmed with weapons that could tear fleets apart. Suicide, some called it. A chance worth taking, Elias answered. We are not here for survival anymore, he told them, his voice steady. We are here for justice. They thought we were food. They thought we were weak. Tonight we show them what it means to choke on their own hunger. The fleet launched. Engines roared. Weapons armed. Across human space, survivors held their breath. The battle at the fortress moon was like nothing the galaxy had seen before. Alien fleets swarmed in defense, their weapons lighting up the void in blinding storms. Human ships, outnumbered and outgunned, surged forward anyway. Cargo haulers, packed with explosives, slammed into cruisers, detonating in waves of fire. Fighters dove into impossible angles, cutting down ships that had never known such reckless defiance. Inside the moon, the nobles gathered in fear as reports poured in. They had expected an easy defense. Instead, they faced an enemy that refused to die. Elias himself led the final assault. His ship, battered and burning, plunged through the fortress defenses. Boarding pods fired into the heart of the moon, carrying soldiers with nothing left but knives, guns, and rage. Hallways turned into rivers of blood as humans tore through guards, their fury unstoppable. At the central chamber, Elias and his team broke through the doors. The nobles stood there, their bodies glowing faintly from the nectar they had consumed. Their eyes wide with horror. This was never food, Elias said, his rifle raised. This was fire. And then the chamber erupted. When the dust cleared, the nobles lay dead. The fortress moon shuddered as explosions ripped through its core. The human fleet pulled back just in time, watching as the fortress collapsed in on itself, the fireball stretching across the stars like the birth of a new sun. The news spread faster than light. The alliance was gone. The trade was shattered. The three empires fell into chaos, turning on one another in desperation. Fleets vanished into civil war. Nobles hunted nobles. And through it all, one truth grew clear. Humanity had not only survived, it had broken the galaxy's hunger forever. On the bridge of the Resolute, scarred and weary, Elias stood with his crew. Around him, survivors cheered, wept, and embraced. He did not smile, but there was a light in his eyes that had not been there before. We are done being prey, he said quietly. From this day on, they will remember what it means to hunt. Humans, they will remember the storm. And across the galaxy, the message burned like fire. Humanity was no delicacy, no resource, no food. Humanity was vengeance, survival, and fury. The aliens had craved a flavor that shook their empires. They got what they wanted, but the flavor that lingered was not nectar, it was fear.